What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Track 24, the Gauntlet. The Cowboys are entering the Gauntlet. The Philadelphia Eagles are currently in the Gauntlet. The Cowboys, actually, I call it the anti-Gauntlet with all the crappy teams we just finished playing. But per usual, I'm your host, The Rook, and I'm joined by the medical guy, and we are here to shatter the script after Thanksgiving. So we've got a couple of track rankings for you guys. Best top 3 side dishes for Thanksgiving. Of course, we got the Week 12 Thanksgiving recap, Week 13 predictions, 2-minute drill presented to you by the medical guy with our video injury analysis or picture, whichever one is going to be presented. We never know. You got the heave of the week, the Rooks looks, the kids' picks are back this week. We got 3 for Thursday night football for the Dallas Cowboys versus Seahawks game. So without further ado, the medical guy, how are things? How was your Thanksgiving? We were there
great,
at the same
man.
time.
Yeah, they were great, man. You saw how half of it went. Saw all the crazy dogs running around and going nuts as well as the children. But good fellowship with the family, both sides of the family, and just good hanging out, eating some great food, man. Like we talked about earlier, had to get in the gym this week, sweat some of that off. Yeah. Nana cooks everything. The base layer of her food is at least 1 stick of butter. That's not counting any other sticks of butter. There's 1 stick of butter and everything, and had to get in the gym yesterday and sat in a sauna for like 30 minutes a day, and don't know if I made a dent in it, but we're trying. We're trying. How was your Thanksgiving? You were there as well.
I was there as well. Yeah, it was you're right on the stick of butter thing. Absolutely. Cowboys win. Always a better Thanksgiving. The food is fantastic, which we'll get into what our favorite sides are in a minute about Thanksgiving, which is always the best. I personally enjoy the sides more than the main course. I'll work my way around, and then once I get towards the middle pause, like I get too full. But
no pause.
No pause. Thanksgiving food, it's whatever. But yeah, Nana knows how to. She knows how to cook, man.
And this year it was like she was trying to prove something.
Yeah. Dak Prescott's on a prove it year. Well, Nana's on a prove it Thanksgiving year.
She's trying to make the team this year.
Last year under contract,
Yeah, and what's nuts is like it's always good, and this year somehow it was better.
Yeah, a prove it year. Yeah. Oh my god! All right, well, let's get into our Shatter the Script segment. This is the Bitches Love Sports podcast on Twitter. I found it on there. This is their video that they posted. I'm not sure if they siphoned it off from some other account, but I've seen on YouTube we're getting like a copyright notice, so whatever. It's Twitter. But here we go. This is them talking about Dak Prescott as the MVP candidate and whatnot.
No one's playing better right now than Dak, and he was asked yesterday about being mentioned in the MVP conversation. Here's what he had to say about that.
What I say to myself is I haven't done, you know what I mean? It's regular season, numbers are great. We're getting wins. That's what's most important. But at the end of the day, we're trying to stack and keep growing this team to make sure that we're getting better each and every week.
I mean, what are we supposed to do if Dak's going to say he ain't do nothing? Like the whole took your bet. The whole thing that we do is say, "Hey, Dak, you're playing MVP level football. Do it in the playoffs, even though it's not the playoffs." So what are we supposed to do if Dak undercuts our whole industry? Come on,
Dak got hold of the rundown, is what happened.
Dak playing chess.
Part of the show. Look,
Hey, talking about taking your bit, man. Talk about taking your bitch. Congrats on the father. Congrats on the kid, Dak Prescott. But, it is comical to see this because they're saying it out loud. Wait a minute, what? Dak is saying all these perfect things behind the mic after the post game. He knows that this game doesn't mean shit and that the real objective is the Super Bowl. Oh my God, we can't say anything about Dak Prescott. And it's funny because he's been doing that for 8 years. And we talked about it off the record, and I'll let you expand on it because this is probably the direction you're going to go, is the fact that we have just gone to war for 8 years in the group chats, in person, at public events, parties, you name it. Meeting a random guy at a bar when you're wearing a Dallas Cowboys hat. So is Dak Prescott your guy? And you go into a 30-minute argument with a 50-year-old Marlboro man smoker drinking tequila at some local bar off I-45, and you're just like, I'm so sick and tired. And now he's finally getting praises. He's finally getting his flowers. And at the same time, we don't care. We're not trying to stat watch. We want a Cowboys Super Bowl. We believe Dak is a guy that can do it, and this is a prove it year for Dak. So that's kind of my take on this side of the script. Still got some work to do, like he said.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with everything you said. And it's awesome. It's awesome to see him play well and get recognized for it, but also, and he's done it before, but it's coming to light now, it seems like. But him also recognizing, like, hey, I haven't done anything either. Yes, it's great that I'm doing good. However, winning is more important than me doing good. And that's something you want to see from the quarterback and whatnot. Now, the other thing is RG3 in that script, or in that post.
Bozo alert.
Yeah. Man is laughing through the tears right now. I know we saw the past couple weeks he's kind of put out his own sales pitch that he should be a quarterback, and then the Browns went and hired Joe Flacco to be the quarterback. So man is, you want to talk about DB list. I know he didn't make it, but man, just to see him, sitting up there laughing and smiling through the tears right there, he's having a tough go at it. It would stink to put yourself out like that and just get crushed with Joe Flacco, who didn't even play for the Jets.
Yeah,
and then get picked up off the couch, and he's like, "Oh, the backup quarterback of the Browns."
Yeah, the most pathetic part of his sales pitch was, "Hey guys, I finally learned how to slide." I thought that was the best part. I was like, "Wow, it took you 13 years."
Yeah, 10 years too late.
Yeah,
10 years a knee too late. Sorry.
it took us. I mean, well, I'm not even gonna say that, but
yeah.
All right, moving on. Hey,
settle down.
But let's get into your 2-minute drill, and then we'll move into the Week 12 recap. But I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Well, let's get it started. I have a lot on here, but I'm gonna go through them pretty quick. But we have 2 of them that came out of the Browns. We got Myles Garrett, who hurt his shoulder, so keep an eye out on that. He's kind of the heartbeat for that defense. Phenomenal player, arguably defensive player of the year right now, and just watch out for that. Second is Amari Cooper, took a shot to the ribs.
Big hit.
X-ray came back negative, so that's good, but still, bruised ribs are not something that are fun to deal with. Another one for the Browns, but that's going to be my injury video analysis. Next, we have Titus Howard, tackle for the Texans, had banged up his knee. Imaging actually came out better than what they thought, so he might be out a little bit, but better than what was expected. Another big one, Jonathan Taylor. He's on one of my fantasy teams. This was hard to hear, but he ended up having thumb surgery. He'll be out for 2 to 3 weeks. Being a ball carrier, I don't think it'll be too crazy for him or anything like that. It's not like some of the quarterbacks that have gone through it, these thumb injuries this year. But big hit, especially in like prime time fantasy football time. Yeah. But hopefully he heals. I know he's dealt with the contracts thing, so hopefully he heals fine, comes back, in tip-top shape. Another big one for the Chargers, Joey Bosa, foot, ankle injury. I saw the video, and it's kind of hard to gauge, and they hadn't really come out too much about it. But it's either going to be something with Achilles or something like with an ankle fracture. But he went to the IR, so he's probably going to be out for the rest of the year. Another big hit that sucked just because he got back from injury was, and I don't think I got to talk about it last week, but Davon Achane re-aggravated his knee. Hopefully he's better because he's gets better soon, and they don't rush him back or anything because he's a big lightning force for that offense, and it's cool to see him and Mostert out there kind of running around and everything. Next, I know we saw this for the Miami Dolphins. Jalen Phillips tore his Achilles. So he'll be out, big time edge rusher for them.
Big loss.
And they really don't have too much depth at that position, and that's kind of the side of the ball that if that side of the ball can figure it out, they can be a really good team. They're already a good to great team, but that can kind of set them over the edge. Justin Jefferson Jetta had a hamstring injury. He's set to return. We'll see. That loss this past weekend kind of sucked because that really kind of messed up their projection and everything like that. Brutal. Chris Olave, concussion, he's questionable. I think they play Sunday, so he may be able to be back by then, but concussions are always weird, so keep an eye on that. And then 2 for the Philadelphia Eagles. Lane Johnson, who woke up with a groin injury, not the similar groin injuries that the kid wakes up with every Sunday morning, but
Right.
That you got to go to urgent care for and whatnot. But yeah, but woke up with a groin injury, wasn't able to play. It obviously see the production there was a big drop off in that position on that O line. But it is nice to have 3 or 4 other All Pro, Pro Bowl O linemen play on the same line as you. So and then on the other side of the line, Fletcher Cox had another groin injury. He actually had to come out of the game, so it'll be interesting to see how that D-line goes up against the 49ers this week, right? With them running the ball. So next, we're going to go into Dorian, DTR, Dorian Thompson Robinson. Yeah, he suffered a concussion. This is actually the video I'm going to go over, and we're going to share the screen. Okay.
Yeah, this is a brutal hit. I was watching this one live, and I was like, ooh, this dude's knocked out for sure.
Yeah, so share it right there.
There we go. All right, you're on.
Screen. All right, sweet. So you can see right here, it's just going to be, I'm just going to do that short video right there. And you can just see kind of gets up under that face mask and gets him in the chin. And you'll see later videos going out through the week of where he actually kind of busted that chin up pretty bad. And so, Tim the Tap Man, there we go. And so that's kind of my spiel I'm going to go over with concussions. I know they're a big thing we've kind of paid attention to. It seems like every couple of years they harp on it a lot, and then it kind of fades for a little bit, and then it comes back to light. But just going over concussions, technically a concussion is a traumatic brain injury, which means that's trauma to the head or the brain that causes the brain to slightly move within the skull. Just some stats to put out there. Basically 1.5 to almost 4 million concussions occur within sports in the United States. That's not the rest of the world. So you can imagine how often these can occur, and they can occur from, little kids to professional athletes to whatever level you're at. And then there's 2 different types or they describe them as 2 different types of concussions. One's called contre-coup or counter-coup, which is when the head is stationary, when the head hits a stationary object. So, I know it's going to be funny to say it like this, but picture like if you hit your head up against a wall, that would be contre-coup. Okay. Coup. So spell it. Yes. So spell it like COUP. So like coop, but it's coup. Okay. Is basically when a moving object hits a stationary head. So as you could see in that last video, defensive player hitting him in the head. And just to kind of touch on concussions, and I preach this to all my athletes and students and whatnot, all concussions are different and they heal differently. Okay. I know a lot of people, you get these reports out there, and it kind of looks weird when you see the NFL or big time organizations do this, where guys get concussions and then they come back in the same week and play on Sunday. And it's like, I'm sorry, but it's really hard for me to determine that they fully healed from a hit like that in 5 days, because when you're working with concussion protocol and recovery process, I know for us, we have a 5-phase essentially protocol. Is phase 1, you're able to go through a regular daily basis without any symptoms. That's going to class, that's walking around, that's going to lunch, whatever, showering, watching TV, studying. And then, day 2, you're doing some light cardio, some bike. Day 3, kind of same thing, running around. Day 4, you're doing more high intense drills, sprinting, sprint work, lifting, stuff like that. And then you get into your non-contact and your contact phase. And so for me, it's really tough to sit here and be like, hey, yeah, this guy's going to be back in 7 days, when they have to go through that phase and pass it all. And so that's why you really don't want to put a gauge on the return period, because if you sit here and say like, oh, you'll be back in 5 to 7 days, well, you're in day 6 and you're still having symptoms. And it's like, well, I'm not back yet. Okay. And so leading into something that can come with it, I know you being a former athlete, you've probably heard of this, but what's called second impact syndrome. Okay. Second impact syndrome is a condition where basically an individual hasn't recovered fully from a head injury or a brain injury, and then they go back to sports too soon and they get hit in the head again. Well, what that can do, and what second impact syndrome is basically, like on another body part, right? You swell, right? And you wait for that swelling to go down and it heals. Well, that's what the brain kind of does with a concussion. Okay. Not that gruesome, but you take a hit to it. It's obviously affected. And then you take another hit to it, it causes it to swell, messes up the blood flow in the brain. And once you start messing with that, then you start looking into loss of function, loss of life, being a vegetable, for lack of better terms, for the rest of your life. And so that's why it's really important that everybody knows about concussions and knows how to handle them. And a lot of things we've been talked, and one of our doctors that we work with now that really focuses on concussion research and education is, if you get hit in the head and you get a headache from getting hit in the head, that's a symptom. That means there's been some type of trauma to the head or the brain. And I know a lot of people think like, oh, I played football, I always had a headache and whatnot. Yeah. Well, you get your bell rung. That's more or less you had something like that.
Right.
And so, I mean, I know we can all speak from experience. We've been there before, right? And, you get hit in the head and you're like, whoa, that didn't feel good. And like your head hurts. And then, you wake up the next day and you have a headache. I mean, and so that's where we really try to harp on is concussion education, concussion protocol education. And so I think that was just a big thing I wanted to talk on. Especially there's so much research out there on it. There's so much education, and still certain things I don't want to say swept on the rug, but maybe not handled as well as they should. But that's kind of my education event right there on concussion, and seeing that one, that was kind of a gruesome one and whatnot. So that seemed like a pretty easy one to do, but also one that had a lot of information. So
and we've seen multiple times, Brock Purdy, it seemed came back really early from a concussion. There was another one this week here. He came back for his next game, or it was a bit odd. Tua, obviously I think he took 2 or 3 weeks off when he hit his head and had that seizure.
And that was a big one. That was a big one where he got hit in the head and then came back in the game. Yeah, he had it's called fencing or posturing position.
Posturing, yeah.
And basically what that means is there's been like spinal cord trauma. And so what that does, and I know that sounds very intense, which it kind of is, but basically where there's been something pressed or moved in a certain way to where it causes you to, I don't want to be crude, but where you go up and your arms go like that, or your one arm goes straight and whatever. But even that game, like he took a hit to the head earlier in the game, and everybody, and like you saw him get up kind of wobbly and whatnot, and then he continued to play and then sustained an even worse injury. So just knowing what that second impact syndrome is shows just kind of how lucky he is, because those symptoms can set in and effects can happen within like 2 minutes. Like it's not like, the next day something happens or whatever. It's like you could be sitting there and your brain swelling, pushing up on everything, and like it could be fatal within 5. And so that's how crazy and important that it is to just know what all we're doing and making sure you're doing the right thing, because in the end it is a game. And I know everybody says, well, I'll live and die on that field. It's like, well, we don't want you to. We don't want you.
We'd rather you not die.
We want you to be, 35 years old, being able to turn your head to go throw the ball with your kid, or, you be able to wake up in the morning without a headache for the rest of your life. So, so that's just kind of my spill on it. Hopefully it was a good little education portion of it. But to get into, depending on what kind of fan you are or who a fan you are of, the DB list, to get into the down bad list. Okay, we got to transition into something else that's not as grim. But my DB list, you can pick which one you want. It's either going to be the Jets or it's going to be the Panthers. And the reason being is because with the Jets, you go out and you get Aaron Rodgers. And obviously I know the Achilles thing happened and that sucks. But just look at all the pieces that went with Aaron Rodgers, right? You got Aaron Rodgers, you got Randall Cobb, you got Alan Lazard, you got who is it?
Garrett
Hackett?
Wilson, Nathaniel Hackett, Brees
all
Hall.
Those people but those 4 were all brought there because of
Mecole
Rodgers.
Hardman is another one.
Yeah, Mecole Hardman. All were brought there because of Aaron Rodgers. And then now, obviously, he doesn't play. Circumstances, happen and whatnot. But then you have Zach Wilson, who is obviously not playing very good, and then you bring in Tim Boyle, and it's like, to me at this point, just let Zach Wilson ride it out. I mean, you're not getting better play from Tim Boyle, and so they're just put in a terrible position. The defense doesn't look great. It's obvious, they brought a quarterback in there to play, and now he's not playing and whatnot. But if you want to pick the Panthers, okay, you could. I mean, I don't even like your reaction right there. You go ahead and say like just how much they gave up for Bryce Young, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, they gave up C.J. Stroud, DJ Moore, Tank Dell, and then somebody else that those picks turned out to be. Then you hire Frank Wright, right?
Chosen Anderson. Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Of course. And so you bring in Frank Wright and David Tepper, the owner and whatnot. He's been too hands-on with what he's trying to do. And I saw someone tweet about it, is he's trying too hard to piece together a team and not get somebody in there and develop it, because this is essentially three coaches in 3 years or 2 years.
Right.
And it's like, what do you expect to happen? Like, I think there needs to be a little more blame put on someone making those decisions rather than just, oh, we're going to get rid of the coach. Oh, we're going to get rid of the OC. We're going to get rid of the running game specialist. It's like, bro, like what players you got out there, man? You got no O-line. You got Adam Thielen. Mingo hasn't been a hit. I mean, Miles Sanders can't. I mean, he's good, but like when you don't have anybody to run behind, that's what happens. Your defense is not great. Like, and so I think they just need to be. There needs to be some type of stipulation made for like these owners that do stuff like that. Like, what did you expect this team to be this year? Like, there's no way you go into this year expecting the Panthers to be a 9 game winner.
Yeah.
Like, there's no shot. And then you just fire a dude. And it's like, okay, what do you expect him to do the rest of the year? Like,
yeah. I don't think Frank Reich's a bad coach either. You know, I think he's actually one of those guys that you would actually prefer to have for a young quarterback.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it made zero sense to me. And for them to come out, they had a heyday in the press. Basically, he coming out and saying, yo, we actually had a chance to draft Stroud and the trade didn't fall through, but we have full confidence in Bryce Young. Almost like, guys, look, I'm not dumb. I was going to take Stroud. Okay. Believe me, come on, guys. Right. And it's like, wow, I thought that was freaking pathetic. Like, wow, really? You're going to claim that you were actually going to draft CJ Stroud? Even if it is true, you shouldn't say it, because then that reflects on Bryce Young as he didn't even want me in the first place. This is just the deal that he got.
Yeah.
So,
and then just to send people on their way. Like, these are dudes like jobs and livelihood. And you're like I don't know what the expectation was, but I couldn't imagine. Yeah, I couldn't imagine the Panthers on a good year winning like what 4-5 games this year. Like, give me a break. So that wraps up the 15-minute 2-minute drill for y'all.
We got a little extra content in there, but pat yourself on the back for that one. You were on pace there before we were under your goal before we talked about it off the record. So I added a little extra.
Concussion. Yeah, the concussion kind of ran away from me a little bit, but it was a lot of good information, so it's awesome.
All right, Week 12 recap. I'll start off with our Thanksgiving game, and then we'll circle back to the Packers-Lions. But to start off, Thanksgiving night game, the 49ers versus the Seahawks. This was exactly how I thought the game was going to go down. I predicted it initially 33-16 49ers. It ended up being 31-13 49ers, easily beating the Seahawks. Running backs Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel did their thing in the backfield and, carried the 49ers back to the homeless streets of San Francisco safely. And the 49ers defense gave Geno and their offense trouble all day long. It was kind of close for 3 quarters, for 2.5 quarters, I should say. And then it just started to break away, and the 49ers defense started getting a rhythm. It completely stalled the Seattle Seahawks offense in the second half. And, of course, with the loss of Kenneth Walker, that didn't help very much. Zach Charbonnet did an all right job filling in, but if you have no run game and you got to face a defense like the 49ers and you have a quarterback like Geno Smith who's finally written back, it's tough. It's tough to watch, and DK Metcalf's trying to box somebody every 3 or 4 plays. But I predict San Francisco versus Philadelphia is going to be the biggest game of the year for the number 1 and number 2 seed implications. And then to follow that game, you've got, the Dallas versus the Philadelphia game. But yeah, this is what I expected for the 49ers game. And I'll toss it over to you for the early Thanksgiving game.
Yeah. So if you didn't get in your seats quick like I did, because I was, stuffing my plate full of food, this game kind of ran away really quick. But we have the Packers 29, Lions 22. I have the score wasn't very indicative of the actual game. The Packers started off hot. I came in and it was like 7-0, and I think you told me, you were like, yeah, Christian Watson caught like a 45-yard touchdown and whatever. And at the same time, I'm like, wow, about time, Mr. Watson. Like, and so there was So there was that, but just things I have from it is the Lions defense is not good, man. And
no, they're not.
It might be a hot take, but I know Ryan has kind of that quote for the Dolphins that he thinks they're candy ass. I think the Lions are starting to drift into that category because their defense is just, it looks like a Big 12 defense. Like it looks like whoever has the ball last is going to win. And if you can get a stop or two, they're not going to win the game. And so
the Detroit Lions are Oklahoma.
Yeah. That's what they look like. And it was kind of brutal to see. And I know we want to talk about stat padding. That's essentially what the Lions did is they went into full, like you say, heave mode and then towards the end of the game and whatnot and brought it pretty close. Another thing I have about the Packers really is that, Jordan Love has kind of had a sneaky okay season. Like, if you just look at the overall, like, broad numbers, he's got a good amount of TDs, had a 3 TD game this week, has a low number of picks and whatnot. He's had a decent season for his essentially first season. And
it's actually identical to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. And, he's out of the shadow of Aaron Rodgers, and it seems like he's kind of calming down. I know he had kind of that big high at the beginning of the season, played some tough teams and whatnot, but seems to be getting his feet under him, playing well. And, and it sounds simple to say, but if he eliminates, more of the turnovers and just the terrible throws, not the complete bad ones, but if you were looking for that about 4-game stretch, like there were some throws, you're like, dude, why? Like, why are you throwing that ball? There's no reason you should be throwing it. And if he eliminates, those, like he could be a decent quarterback. So, and then my last point is I think the Lions, they need to move forward with what they did on offense, at least in the run game where they're doing a healthy balance of Montgomery and Gibbs. They both seem like they're very good. They both bring a kind of a different mentality, but they show that they could both be a bell cow running back. But at the same time, they don't have to, and they don't have to run themselves into the ground. And, I know it showed that Montgomery had more touches and whatnot, but Gibbs had 8 targets. And so I think that's a good thing for them is, yes, letting him run the ball, but then getting it to him in space, letting him make a play, something like that. And then your bruiser, Montgomery, who gets, 6 yards a clip or whatever. I think that's a good, healthy balance. And I think, kind of fading into what we've talked about with Kellen Moore and the Chargers and what he used to do with the Cowboys is using that run game and that or what he should have done was using that run game and that running back pass game to kind of control the game and slow it down just a tad. That way it's not just air raid, all forces go at all times. So that's kind of my quick little rundown of the Thanksgiving game. Do you want me to go into Black Friday or do you want to go into Jaguars Texans?
Yeah, you finish off with Black Friday and then I'll move us into the Sunday slate.
All right. Well, Black Friday game, 2:30 game, Dolphins, Jets. This game went about as well as it sounds for a Friday game at 2:30. Dolphins smacked the hell out of the Jets 34-13. Dolphins, Dolphins defense looked better. If this team can figure out, I mentioned it earlier, if they can play okay on defense, they're going to be a really good team and a really hard team to beat.
They've been different since Jalen Ramsey came back.
Yeah,
much different defense.
Yeah, and just it's a lot of. They have a lot of good players now. I know that defensive end is going to be tough to lose, Jalen Phillips, but if they can just be okay on defense, they're going to be a really good team. Second, Jets are a dumpster fire. I think that whole situation is terrible. And I think they've kind of created their own prison right there. And so I think they just need to get through the year. Next, I have that Hail Mary interception return for a touchdown. All I can say about that is only the Jets. Only the Jets could do that. And I've kind of mentioned a lot of my other points. I don't think there was any point in taking Wilson out if you're just going to put someone who's worse than him in. I thought Tua looked okay. I don't think he looked great, but he did enough for him to win. He still threw a couple of picks and whatnot. And I think Miami, I know their offense is high flying and has everybody running around and 17 motions a play and whatnot, but I think they get a little too cute with it, especially against teams like the Jets where it's like, you're better than them. Go beat them. Right. Rather than, hey, Tyreek Hill does a motion one way, he stops. Raheem Mostert motions out. Jalen Waddle motions out behind. It's like, dude, just like call a play and let's go. Like y'all are gonna beat the shit out of this team. Like y'all don't like. It's almost like you're using your whole playbook, and it's like just go. Like y'all are better than this team. Yeah, if they can kind of eliminate that kind of stuff, I think they can be really good and kind of move away from that candy ass label that Ryan puts on them. So Dolphins 34, Jets 13, miserable game, and I'll let you get us started with an actual good game with the Jaguars and the Texans.
That's right. Yeah, the AFC South showdown. Hopefully we get this Trevor Lawrence versus CJ Stroud matchup for the ages. I talked about it last week. This is your light-skinned Christian versus white-blooded Mormon matchup. Disclaimer, Trevor Lawrence is not actually Mormon, I don't believe, but it's fun to make that joke. And just kind of stir up false rumors. But yeah, no, Trevor Lawrence versus CJ Stroud, this is a matchup that we're going to want to see for a long time. It was an outstanding game, huge playoff implications, and as more importantly, divisional implications for that, home playoff game to start off the season, because obviously I don't think either of these teams, maybe the Jaguars, could get the number 1 seed over the Ravens, only because the Jaguars have beaten the Chiefs already. But this game was supposed to go to overtime. Their free agent kicker that they had to sign behind Kiami Fairbairn. Yeah, my favorite player.
Yep.
Pause. I think he misses this field goal from like 60 yards right off the crossbar, which was brutal for the Texans. But it's always funny to see them lose, no matter how good their quarterback is. I'm a huge fan of CJ Stroud. I want to say that out in public. The guy is incredible. Everything he's about, everything he represents. It reminds me of a quarterback that's in the NFL already that I won't say his name, but we criticized that quarterback for a long time for the same things that CJ Stroud is doing. Although Stroud's expectations are much, 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 much higher than what this other quarterback's was when he entered the league, just because of draft position alone. But yeah, Stroud played well from behind, man. I thought Trevor Lawrence made some big plays through the air in critical moments, like that pass to Christian Kirk right before halftime. They took the risk to go for it at the half, which I like.
Yeah,
but they got stuff.
Agree.
Yeah, I like that call. The Texans ended up making that stop. Kudos to them. Being aggressive helps, in my opinion, and that's what got them to win in this game. Both teams, I think, absolutely deserve a playoff spot. Hopefully we get a matchup. The series is tied 1-1 on the season. And my last note on this is that Stroud remains the runaway rookie offensive MVP, 100%. He's playing outstanding. So, But yeah, that kind of wraps up the Jaguars versus Texans, and then we'll both kind of tackle the Sunday Night Football recap, the Ravens versus the Chargers. And I'll start off with this one. 20-10, Ravens win this ball game. And I said it last week, and I'll say it again this week, and it hurts me every time I say it, but the Chargers are cheeks. And Staley should not be employed today. Like today, yesterday, he should 3 days ago, he should have been fired. Yesterday, he should have been fired. I have no idea how he still has a job. And the fact that he's employed today is just another sign that Justin Herbert needs to get the hell out of Los Angeles.
Absolutely.
And Herbert comes to play continues just to play his absolute tail off week in, week out, and he suffers for it. Some of them are non-controllables like wide receiver injuries. But another thing I'd like to add to this, and I'm actually happy about this a little bit, not for the individual, but just the situationship that we're in with this, is Kellen Moore has not elevated this offense any more than where it was last year. And nor did he do a fantastic job in Dallas with schemes, other than lighting up the scoreboard. When you're looking for, we thought that this offense was going to elevate dramatically with a big arm like Justin Herbert. I understand you got injuries and stuff like that, but we were putting up number 1 points on the board with Noah Brown as a number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah.
So when you got all those guys over there, you should be, and you got Justin Herbert, who everybody says is a better quarterback than Dak Prescott, which is pretty obvious that he is talent-wise. There's no excuses. So I just think he's been kind of poor, pitiful. It could be coaching. It could be him. It could be injuries. But I think it's all those things mixed, but it starts at the top. And then lastly, the Ravens defense is playing phenomenal. Like I predicted after losing, Mark Andrews, they probably had to kind of lock in and settle in and zero in on their objective of getting that number 1 seed in the Super Bowl. And Lamar Jackson continues to impress without really an arsenal. So the Ravens, the score was 20-10. It was low, but the Chargers could not move the ball. So fantastic win from the Ravens.
Yeah. And just what I have to add on it, I have Lamar did what he needed to do. It wasn't a flashy game, wasn't him making super highlight real plays or anything like that, but he didn't have 700 yards rushing and whatever, but he did what he needed to do, and that was win the game. And if you look at it, how this game was played and offense was kind of run, that's kind of been the Achilles heel with Kellen Moore's going against other teams, is someone who can not try to just light up the field with you, but kind of make you slow down and get out of your rhythm. And it showed, right? They couldn't get anything going. They tried to do too much. Now, they did have some turnovers and stuff like that, which I'll get into as well. But it just showed that's kind of been like the formula to beat that offense is like, hey, get them out of rhythm a little bit and they crumble. Right. And that's the same thing that happened with Dallas. Get Dallas out of rhythm a little bit. And it was like, oh, my God, we're losing again. And, it's just unfortunate to see, especially with the arsenal they have over there. Then I have Keaton Mitchell needs to be running back 1. He's increased every year or every game and whatnot, but he seems every time he gets the ball, he's getting carries at 8 yards a clip. And so he needs to be running back 1. I have Zay Flowers just written down because that one play where he took that handoff, it looked like he was in, like when you're playing Mario Kart and you have the mushrooms where you speed up. It looked like he literally, when he touched the ball, it was like, and I was like, oh my God. Yeah. I was like, my God, this dude is fast. And then Austin, I have written down Austin Eckler effect. I think that could be an honorable mention DB list candidate, just due to the fact that at the beginning of the year, he went on to all these things about how he needed to be paid, how he needed to do this. Not saying he's a bad person or anything, but he made it out to say like, hey, I need to be paid more to be here and do all this. And, he had a little controversy where he sat out. Don't know if he was injured or anything like that. Kind of crazy, but he sat out and then he played. In the last 2 or 3 games, he's had some absolutely critical turnovers. And they have been on him. And then there's one video where he got the ball on the sideline, and it looked like
a favorite one.
It looked like the Paul Ricard guy for the Baltimore Ravens, the 330-pound fullback running down the sideline.
Yeah, it looked like the kid running down the sideline.
Yeah, absolutely. Like me and Ryan in a foot race to.
Oh, it looked like you're probably better off.
Me and Ryan on a foot race to the fridge to grab a nice cold drink. Yeah, huffing and puffing, man.
To a nice Bud Light.
Yeah, exactly. Out of your fridge, by the way. But yeah, and so it's just tough to see like how all these things kind of unraveled, and in critical times we've had pretty critical turnovers and whatnot. And then last, kind of agree to your point, I have poor Herbert. Dude seems to be doing everything he can, and everybody else doesn't seem to be doing what they can. It just seems like he's on an island, kind of out there by himself, just throwing quarters into the water, trying to make a dollar, and it just ain't happening. So it's tough to see, and I agree 100% with what you said about the coaching staff right now. It's brutal.
I got a great comparison for Justin Herbert. In my opinion, it's great. I think a great comparison is Bob Cratchit from the Christmas Carol, but the Muppets Christmas Carol, and it's Justin, Herbert the Frog, and as Bob Cratchit, if you haven't seen the movie, he's working his absolute tail off for just about 2 cents so he can put a coin in the coal, or a coin in the coal box so he can take a piece of coal and actually make a fire for himself to keep him warm, working under Ebenezer Scrooge. It's just brutal. You're working for the rich white man, and Kermit the Frog is, just absolutely penalized, just trying to make a buck, stay warm, and buy a turkey for Tiny Tim. But Herbert the Frog down bad. I just figured since the season I'd make a Christmas comparison there.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great one though.
There we go. Yeah. But all right, let's go to our TRAK ranking of the week. This is our top 3 side dishes for Thanksgiving. We got number 1, diamond, number 2, platinum, and number 3, gold. Medical guy, I will let you go first.
Hey, let's go 1 and 1. Let's go 1 and 1. So I'll start off with my gold. So we'll start off at 3, work our way up, or we'll start off at gold, work our way up to diamond. So this one right here, and I don't know if there's ever a bad time to have this, and it might be on yours. Almost you could put it in a God tier, I guess.
What?
Or a vibranium tier, like we talked about that one time. But mac and cheese. From this year, mac and cheese had to take my gold ranking.
I got a similar one. All right, that's good.
All right.
It's actually my platinum, but my gold ranking is those rolls that Nana makes.
Oh my God.
1,000 stick of butter, in that little foil pan. And you take one, you want to take like fucking 7 of them, but you just take one and you're just like, you want it's on your plate. You just want to leave it there until the end of the meal because you're like, I can't wait to eat this, but I want to eat it first.
And it's like you see a couple of the little ones running around, like 2 or 3 on your plate, and it's almost like, hey, come back.
Yeah,
wait your turn, brother. Wait your turn. Earn your stripes, young blood. Like, come back.
That butter needs to melt. That butter needs to kern. Just
you get one, and when everybody else come back, we'll see what's left.
You got that one little roll that you put like all your sides in for some reason, and just all right, platinum.
Yeah. Platinum. All right. I had the candy yams or sweet potato or whatever it was.
Candy ass yams.
I'll be candy ass if those are considered candy ass. Bro, I feel like those are just like you've got so much like savory, salty stuff on your plate, and then it's like you finish it and you're like, oh, this is something that can be still considered part of the sides.
Can I get the yams?
Yeah, and dude. And it's almost like they're so good, you only have like one of them. You put like 3 or 4 of them, then you're a fat ass. You got to put like one of them, and you have it, and you're like, oh, dude, perfect. Now we'll wait about 10 minutes, and then it's desserts. So it's like candy yams, platinum.
Hell yeah. All right. My platinum, this was similar to your gold, but my platinum is, I'll title her Mother May, is what I call my mother. But her broccoli cheese rice casserole. It is
gas.
It is never beaten. I've had plenty of broccoli cheese rice casseroles expecting the same result. It always just tastes dry. But this one, bro, you talk about creamy, you talk about cheesy, you talk about broccoli. You talk
about ricey.
Yeah, you talk about ricey. You want to talk about spicy?
I will say that was like for my gold, that was almost my goal because that was so good.
Oh, it's incredible. I request it at every holiday. Every holiday, I'm like, you making that? Yes, it's usually
President's Day, broccoli cheese casserole.
Yeah.
July 4th, broccoli cheese casserole.
January 6th. No.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Liberty. Yeah. Broccoli cheese casserole.
Yeah. Sweet.
I ain't even there.
Excited.
Yeah, I ain't even there. Make it anyway. I'll be there in spirit. Like,
yeah.
Hell yeah.
All right, diamond.
And then the diamond, you took one from your mom. I'm gonna take one from my mom. The twice baked mashed potatoes or whatever. I don't know what they're the exact term, but basically what it is, it's mashed potatoes. You cover it with cheddar cheese and whatever other cheese you want to put, and then you put bacon or bacon bits or a mixture of two on top, and then you put it back in the oven for about 10 minutes at 350. Come back out. Oh man, you want to talk about mamas and making one slap one? Mouth water. So that's my diamond ranking. They come out in a big Pyrex thing, and it's like I almost just want to like, hey mom, can you make like an extra for me?
Right.
Like just me.
Yeah.
Like not even Aubrey Ann, just me. Not even Jamie. Me.
If I saw that at the family function, I'd be like DB list for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
But also, you know, the Rooks looks, I'll put you on the start list. I'd be like, yeah, put that dish on the start list for sure.
Absolutely.
My diamond ranking is a Miller Lite plus some Zins. Now this ain't too familiar with our Thanksgiving holidays, but a Miller Lite after a nice ass meal or a little bit of nicotine is absolutely phenomenal. And that's and only because I'm an alcoholic and a nicotine fiend. Honestly, I felt like I was going to kill Tony's segment there. I thought that was going to hit a little better, but you know, hey, it's fine. But yeah, my diamond ranking is going to be Miller Lite. It's whatever.
The beer and the Zin, or just the beer?
You know, I thought about the Zin
alone together. That's okay.
Well, you can do both. That's the great thing about a Zin, which you know that. Yeah. But I'm saying I put like the and Zin because Zin with food doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So like a drink, more the Miller Lite, but then like the Zins on the side after the meal is your side dish.
Yeah.
You know, ain't none of your little cousins know that shit's in. You just grab a little water bottle with a sleeve on it.
They're gonna learn. They're gonna learn.
They're gonna learn.
Hot, I guess. Fire drill. What's your favorite flavored Zin?
Citrus.
Citrus. Good.
Yeah.
It is. It may not be the one I get.
Good.
Yes. Good.
Do it.
Yeah. Do it. So much power. Unlimited power. Yeah. So it's not the ones you can't do them all the time, but you know, after you've had about a week or two off of them, you go back and you're like, hey, these are good.
This is good. Mamas don't let your babies grow up to Zin coffee, you know.
Oh,
those are terrible, but
I do.
Smooth and chill is good too.
Chill, I've started the peppermint ones. I like, and the spearmint ones are pretty good.
I got a question. So, do you think the citrus Zins taste like Fruity Pebbles?
See, I don't. I think they taste like almost like a mountain, like like a Mountain Dew Zero or a Diet Mountain Dew.
I can see that. I think
it tastes like that. And so I actually told that to one of my buddies the other day, and he was like, really, I'm gonna have to go get one of them. And he that day he went and bought them and texted me. He was like, bro, you're so right. I was like, damn. I was like, hey,
yeah,
maybe you need to lay off them for a day or something. It's like,
no, I told my buddy today. He was one of the groomsmen at my brother's wedding, and I was like, "Hey, you're right. I was against this bandwagon about Fruity Pebbles. Not anymore. For some reason, it just kind of was like, whoa."
Those are like back when I used to chew or dip. I don't know if you ever had Stoker's green apple, but
maybe once.
Brother, it's like, oh no, you don't want to do it. It's it's girly, whatever. But then you do it, and you're like, dog, it's like
green apple.
It's some candy, But yeah, that's how similar it is to me. Yeah. But yeah, I agree.
Masculinity takes over sometimes. You're like, I was just gonna say it takes over sometimes. It's like you gotta do original long cut if you're a man. You're like, dip, still dip. There's still nicotine in it.
Yeah,
come on.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into predictions. We'll kind of zoom through these a little bit. But here we go. From the previous track, for the Sunday Night Football game, I picked the Ravens to win. But we'll transition into the upcoming NFL slate for Week 13, starting with the Chiefs versus the Packers. I had the Packers losing this game 29-21 versus the Chiefs. I think Jordan Love throws an interception versus this defense. I think Watson might score. Christian Watson might get in the end zone. Pacheco and Rashee Rice are underrated contributors to this offense. Absolutely. Pacheco runs his tail off, and Rice has done a fantastic job in the end zone and, just being that number one wide receiver, quote unquote, for Patrick Mahomes. And then I think Mahomes and Kelsey stay consistent and then limit mistakes and walk away comfortably with the win.
Yeah. I had the Kansas City Chiefs 27-14. I think it's going to be kind of an ugly day for the Packers. They played a bad defense and whatnot, and they're about to play what has seemingly been a really good defense this year. And I think it's going to be one of those where I think it kind of stays close, and then all of a sudden, similar like the 49ers game, where you're like, oh, this got it close, and then 6 minutes later, it's a 2-score game. And I think the defense is going to be the big controller of this game and going to kind of keep them, I don't want to say in it, but keep them ahead until all of a sudden the dam breaks for the Packers, and then the Chiefs run away with it. And, they end up having like they did this week where Rashee Rice catches one for like 45 yards and runs down the field. And then we all realize why they brought him on the team. So
Right. All right. So we got the Broncos versus the Texans.
Yep.
What are your predictions for the Broncos versus Texans?
Yeah, so it's a -3.5 spread in favor of the Houston. And if I'm a betting man, I'm not touching this game just because it feels weird. Just a weird feeling. The Broncos,
I don't like the color combos either. I feel like them two playing each other just looks odd.
Yeah, and they need to do it like go red and orange or whatever, like something like wild, but they're not going to. And so I just think it's weird because the Broncos, they've messed around and turned into an okay team. They don't play like big outscoring games outside of the Dolphins game they played earlier. They keep it close. They try not to make any mistakes. It's kind of feeding into what Ryan says about Russell Wilson doesn't do too much, but I think it's more on the philosophy of this team is that they're going to keep it close, like the opposite of the Lions game with the Big 12 defense. They want to keep it close until the last second and then kind of sneak out a win. That's how they kind of won a few of them, a few of these games. So if I'm a bet man, don't touch it. But I've got the Houston Texans 24-21. I think they're going to come off a little bit of a revenge game this last week against the Jaguars, where they had plenty of chances to win. Kind of, you don't want to blame on the refs, but they had a lot of odd calls. And then I think D'Amico Ryan kind of cleans up a little bit of the game on both the player and the coaching side. I thought he kind of mismanaged that game there towards the end and whatnot. So I think the Houston Texans take this 24-21.
Yeah, I had a quick prediction on this one. I actually think that the Texans are going to win this game as well, 20-16, and a low-scoring defensive affair. I think both these defenses are playing pretty outstanding this year, considering the rosters that they have. So, and of course, the Denver Broncos are hot, but this streak has got to end at some point. They're playing good football, though. They're playing good football. Could be a playoff team.
They're playing just good enough football.
Yes, that's a great way to put it right there. Just good enough football. All right, so we got the Lions versus the Saints. I got the Lions winning this one in a close one, 23-20, and I went back and forth on who was going to win this game or not. I just, because the reason I say that is because after they just lost, the Lions just lost their previous game to the Packers. We thought that they had an easy schedule for the rest of the year and could be, run away undefeated on their slate and maybe get the number 1 spot, but definitely secure the number 2 spot. With that loss, they just lost everything. The number 2 spot's gone. The number 3 spot might be gone. Who knows? But the Saints are an angry team who is battled or trifled with injuries, and they could be hungry. So I went back and forth, but I think the better team here is the Lions. I just despise how the Saints are coached. and they just don't have a lot of guys left. So this is just a bad game for the Saints to be having right now. But who knows? Derek Carr has 3 critical injuries at wide receiver, like I mentioned. Kamara is probably going to be force-fed. But we have a Taysom Hill breakout game once again. When he gets the ball, good things can happen. If you can get it to him effectively, I think the Saints can win this game. The Lions might struggle versus this strong defense. It is a pretty decent defense. The ground game, I think, will make the difference in this game for the Lions. But yeah, I've got the Lions in a close one.
See, I went a different route. I think the Lions blow the Saints out. I think it's a 31-17 game. Just because I don't think the Saints are going to be able to score. Thomas is out. Olave's out. Rashid Shaheed was gimpy during the game, had to come out of the game. And for my fantasy liking, it's probably going to be great because – and sorry, I'm playing you, the Rook. But
no, I'm toast.
I think this is going to be similar to like when Kamara first got back when Derek Carr was hurt, where he got like 14 catches for like 48 yards or something. And so I think it's going to be that way. I don't think the Saints are just going to be they're just not very good to me. And they don't score much with that offensive power. And I don't think they're going to score much without it. I think the Lions come back hungry. I kind of take the opposite of you.
Yeah. Okay. So. That's what I want the Lions to do, but I just don't know if they are. So hopefully they do what you say. All right. Moving on into the next game. This is the 49ers versus the Eagles. I thought me and you could tackle this one together because this is such a big game for the NFC, but this is our 325 game on Sunday. Did you have a spread for this one? I wasn't able to find it.
Yeah, the latest I saw, which was a little surprising to me, but it's -3 San Francisco. So they got San Fran winning by at least 3.
That's interesting. Okay.
Well, 3, yeah.
I have the Eagles winning this one on a game-winning field goal, 27-26. I think this is going to be it's going to be 24-26 49ers, and then the Eagles will have the ball last, and I think the Eagles will make that field goal. It could be any different type of score, but I think the Eagles will kick a field goal to win this game, and it's going to be that close because for some strange freaking reason, the Eagles have found a way to win all these games. And I will say this. I think they're the luckiest team in sports. I think officiating and uncontrollable circumstances have benefited this team more than any team on this planet in the history of sports. I've seen games where it's raining, which affects the other team, and then it benefits the Eagles, and things might slip their way. I've seen games where the opposing team just kind of quit right before the end of regulation. I've seen games where we've had tackles right at the goal line and not called a touchdown when they should have been, or maybe stepping out on a 2-point conversion. You could just go down the list. I've seen games where the Philadelphia Eagles haven't had a single fucking penalty the entire game against a winning team on primetime football. You can just go down the list. I think they're constantly being outplayed, but they're constantly winning at the same time. And I don't know what's going on, but I don't like it. And I don't want to hate on anybody non-objectively. I think Hurts is being outplayed by every quarterback he plays, and he's winning the game. Josh Allen clearly outplayed Jalen Hurts. Dak Prescott clearly outplayed Jalen Hurts. Just go down the line. At halftime, he's got like 19 yards and an interception with a 0 passer rating, and they won the game. I'm baffled by it. Mahomes outperformed him as well. But just to wrap it up, I think CMC is held to a tight ground game. I don't think he gets a lot of yards in the ground, but I think he's effective in the aerial attack. Ayuk and Kittle, I think, cash in with high volume performances. I think the Eagles have struggled heavily with defending the tight ends, so I think Kittle should have a big game. Ayuk, their secondary is not that good. So, and then AJ Brown versus Chardavius Ward. I'm interested to see the recap on how those coverages went. And how those passes go for AJ Brown. He's had 2 kind of quiet games, but yeah, I think the Eagles win this one. I really don't want any of these teams to win this game, but if any team is going to win it, I would say the 49ers. We need them to win.
Yeah. So I have a very similar outcome to you. I have 28-24 Philadelphia. I think it's going to be a little different to where it's going to be like a 24-21 game, fourth quarter, and they're going to somehow get down to the goal line and push it in and take the lead. But I think if there's a team to beat them, obviously it's the 49ers. Right now, all the 49ers are healthy on both sides of the ball, where the Eagles are a little dinged up, especially like we mentioned with Lane Johnson on one side and Fletcher Cox on the other. I agree with you that I think it's going to be this is going to be going to have to be the Brock Purdy game, right? He's going to have to play well. They're not going to be able to just sit there and tote the rock all over him. And
Right.
I think he's really going to have to spread the ball out and do it that way. I think Devontae Smith, and as we've seen, is going to be the, I guess, the most contributing and affecting factor this game, because it seems they've kind of taken away A.J. Brown the last few games by essentially stopping the, oh shit, A.J. Brown's down there somewhere, single coverage,
Right.
On your head type ball. And they've kind of limited him. He's kind of really, I don't want to say slacked off in production, but the numbers at the beginning of the season are not there. And Devontae Smith have gone up. I think a big thing for the 49ers to win outside of Brock Purdy is going to be, to me, it's going to be Fred Warner and how he contains and manages Jalen Hurts. And it's unreal that you could have a linebacker in that conversation to do that. But I think that's going to be crazy for them. And then, as always, keeping the Eagles out of 4th and 1 and 2 or 3rd and 1 and 2 is going to be crucial. That to me is one of the most demoralizing things for some of these defenses is when you get a big stop and you do this and you just know what's coming. And so I think it's going to be really tough for the 49ers and the Eagles because this is going to be one of the more balanced team outside of the Chiefs and the Cowboys, and really the most star-studded team they've faced since the Cowboys. And it's just gonna be interesting to see how this takes off. But I've got Philly 28, 49ers 24.
Yeah. And I wanted to bring this statistic up because I know we sent it in here about those 1-yard touchdowns. 2 rush touchdowns for Dak Prescott this year versus Jalen Hurts' 11, 28 yards on touchdown runs for Dak Prescott compared to 33 for Jalen Hurts. 8 1-yard touchdown runs from Jalen Hurts so far this year. 8 QB sneaks. You want to talk about stat padding?
I mean, we hate on it and it sucks and whatnot. But at the same time, you gotta give it up for the OCs, the head coaches, finding something that, I mean, if they've seemed to found that one play that you can go to that almost always works and always results in the result you want. And to me, like any coach would give up their left nut for that, right? You get on the goal line within 5 yards. And we talked about it at the beginning of the year with the Cowboys struggling with red zone defense, right? I mean, essentially the Eagles could push 2 times and be in the end zone every time. And so you got to give credit where credit's due on them. I mean, it's something that seems to be unstoppable until, honestly, it'll be and I'm not wishing this upon them, but it'll be until, a Patrick Mahomes type deal where he did it, right? Remember a few years ago where he dislocated his kneecap, his patella came out of place doing a QB sneak. Right. And that's probably going to be the only thing that stops him is if something happens to their quarterback.
Yeah, hopefully that doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you said. And it's never close either. Like it's always just like that was three yards, like easily. So yeah, sweet. Okay, we'll move into quickly the kids' picks. And this is brought to you by, of course, the Kid. These are your 3-player props for Thursday Night Football. And then we'll move into tracking the boys after this. But for your kids' picks, we've got Brandon Aubrey, the kicker for the Dallas Cowboys. We've got him going over 1.5 field goals. And then you got Brandon Cooks, the archer. He's finding his bow on Thursday Night Football, going over on 41.5 reception yards. Geno, he's written back. Smith for the Seattle Seahawks, we're going to go under 228.5 passing yards. Geno Smith, you have written back. So those are your kids' picks for Thursday Night Football, your 3-player props. And that is from the Prize Picks apps. But, of course, you can bet wherever. We are not directly sponsored by anybody. But let's move into tracking the boys segment. The boys Week 12 recap. Now, of course, we got online the Smoking That Commie Pack Dak Prescott video that we always post. And this was a big one. 45-10, Dallas Cowboys win this game. We want to, shortly reflect it. These are, again, we know these are not very good teams. We're supposed to do these to these teams. Not everybody does this kind of stuff to these teams, but we're supposed to do it, and we do it. So the Cowboys passed that anti-gauntlet where we played all those crappy teams, and if you lost one, it would have been all over the headlines. Well, they didn't. They did what they were supposed to do. But nonetheless, we'll give a little quick, short, kind of recap on the offense versus defense, but, of course, authentic and detailed as we can make it. We just know that you guys expected a win here, and there really isn't too much to touch on until the predictions when we enter the gauntlet. So without further ado, the medical guy, what were some top things that you saw from the offense in this game? Obviously, we'll get into the Dak on track segment here in just a second, but big offensive explosion in this game. So probably a lot to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. Biggest things outside of Dak, Tony Pollard seems to be catching his wind, seems to be doing well. But like we've talked about, more of the outside run schemes, getting them outside the tackles, away from the biggest people on the field. But then being able to go back to it, right? You don't want to get too predictable to where it's like, well, they're not running up the middle. So, and that's how he scored. And so I thought that was very good. Obviously, Brandon Cooks still being involved a hell of a lot in the passing game, as we've talked about, and not to pat myself on the back, but I mentioned having him run routes that are across the field and him being to basically run faster laterally or diagonally faster than the defenders. And so essentially scheming stuff short and across, and then him running the opposite way. And we've now seen 3 touchdowns this year happen like that. And I think that's going to be a big thing for them to continue. Now it makes teams think about, oh shit, they've got Brandon Cooks going now. CD opens up. Jake Ferguson opens up. Hell, Robert Turpin opens up. Tolbert opens up. Hell, even Gallup can run his 8-yard stops. It just opens up and makes you think oh shit, now we got to look for this. Not only can he throw it, to where CD can make plays, he can throw it up the seam to Ferguson, or he can throw it across the field to Cooks. And so I thought that was good to see. Those are my 2 big things from the offense. From the defense, obviously we got to give a shout out to Deron Bland. I keep screwing up names right now, but Deron Bland, rewriting history. I think it was his 5th pick 6 of the year. He's really turned out to be that dude, especially with Trayvon Diggs going down. So that was awesome. That was awesome to see. And, overall, defense did well. That offense for the Commanders, they're good. They swing it. I think I read a stat to where this is the first game where a team had, 500 yards of offense or something like that, 100-yard receiver, less than 25-yard penalties, and lose. I think the record was 70-0 or something, and now 70-1. It was some insane stat. Week. Yeah, it was some insane stat, and I was like, good God. But, overall, I thought, Deron Bland looked great. Marquise Bell always is improving, and then seeing Osa Odighizuwa, he's really been a nice find and been just an absolute game changer up the middle. And it's funny because we talked about Hankins and Mozzie Smith, and he's kind of been the one that we didn't talk about as much, and he's kind of come on the scene. But those are kind of my points to take away from the boys.
Yeah, and all good points there. And luckily, I kind of have alternative ones. So sweet. Good on hitting on Pollard and Turpin and all those guys. And I want to talk about Brandon Cooks. He's finally finding the archer is finding his bow consistently. But Dak Prescott distributed this football to a wide spread of different wide receivers throughout this game, like you mentioned. I think it was 8 or 9 different receivers essentially. Schoonmaker. All the way down to Turpin on a touchdown and a seam route. And then you touched on Pollard, which good on you. And then Dowdle, got the end zone out of the backfield. Oh, yeah. The pass protection was incredible. You could not have gone any could not have gotten really any better with the pass protection from the Dallas Cowboys. And then defensively, like you mentioned it, and I'll mention it again towards the end of the podcast with Deron Bland, absolutely amazing call by Jim Nantz there, and Tony Romo. It was electrifying to see that happen, and super happy for him. And of course, he's got more touchdowns than a lot of receivers in this league. They've been using Quentin Johnson for the Chargers as an example, which is kind of a bad player to pick on, but
he has more than DK Metcalf.
Yeah, that's a much better example. But yeah. So, but anyway, we accumulated 4 sacks against Sam Howell, I think he's already been sacked over 50 times this year.
Oh yeah, it's been insane.
Yeah, and then you mentioned the 500 yards of offense in the total game, but this Washington offense completely stalled in the second half. I mean, they couldn't. It was all basically in the first half, and in the second half, it was just kind of garbage time yards. But just kind of a little update on Michael Parsons, who's having still an incredible year. And I can't shout out the podcast. I can't remember the name of it, but I saw this awesome statistic. You can find this probably on public free general information. But of course, Parsons has 11.5 sacks, but the stat that I thought was incredible, he's top 3, I think number 1 highest pressure forced at the edge position. And I think he's top 3. I can't quote if he's number 1, but top 3 in double team rate, which, that just tells you alone, it's not about the sacks. It's about the presence. It's about the talent. It's about, how ferocious of an NFL player you are. You're feared on that field. Your eyes have to be locked on at all times on Michael Parsons. And just because the sacks aren't at 25 already doesn't mean that he is the best edge in football. And then question mark, Darius Leonard to Dallas. We'll keep you all updated and up to speed on that one. He had a successful visit today. He's going to visit our arch rival, Philadelphia Eagles, who will probably sign him upon arrival. But anyway, let's go to the Dak on Track segment, and we'll bring up the chart here. Of course, we had an amazing performance from Dak Prescott with 4 touchdowns in this game. But yeah, 22 out of 32, 331 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a plus 8.5% CPOE. This boy was heaving this bitch around the fucking football field. I mean, we've got 2 over 20 yards. We got a touchdown. I'm sorry, 30 yards. One close to 40. A 40-yard touchdown, a 30-yard touchdown, a 20-yard touchdown, and a touchdown on the screen at down at line of scrimmage. Lots of green dots, no interceptions. This is incredible. This is an incredible chart. If you're looking for quarterback charts, this is the one to look at. But let's. I'll let you.
It was insane that he missed a couple throws early too, and he missed a couple of those throws, like the first drive when I say early, and everybody already goes back into their holes like, oh, here's Dak, and it's like, guys, like he missed a 50-yard bomb to somebody, like give him a break, dude.
Right?
Like,
yeah, that was at the beginning of the game. I had people trolling me. They were like, Dak just missed a wide open CD, and then boom, 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 and it was like ding, 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 ding everywhere, just dotting the field up with exceptional throws all game long.
Yeah, but did you give a letter grade on Dak or no?
No, I was gonna let you go first. And I'll
okay. Well, this was pretty easy for me. I gave him an A, and I think we watched and to credit the show, the Pat McAfee show, when Aaron Rodgers came on talking about Dak playing the position and not meaning it as like throwing it and doing that, but like controlling the offense. And we've talked about this before in earlier podcasts about it seems that we finally gotten to a point we have for the past, 6 weeks now, where it's like McCarthy's letting the players run the offense and having a big hand in the offense, as we saw from a video from Sounds of the Sidelines with the Dallas Cowboys, where Brandon Cooks came out and they caught a clip on there of him saying like, hey, I told Shoddy or one of the coaches that, hey, we need to try to put this play in. I really think it's going to work. It's going to test the top of their defense. And he told it to him and he was like, oh yeah, we'll put it in. And they called that play and he came out and said like, hey, I asked for that play to be put in and they put it in. And I think that's an awesome thing to see with the offense and the trust in the offense, and to trust, like we talked about, trust Dak to run the offense.
Yes.
We talked about you either got to trust the system with Dak or trust Dak with the system. And it seems like we're trusting Dak with a system, and it seems to be so far phenomenal. So that's just my letter grade is an A on Dak. He played out of his mind like he has been the past few weeks.
Yeah, and that's a great breakdown. And I had the Aaron Rodgers on Dak portion as well. I thought that was an awesome segment from Aaron Rodgers to shout out that he's really playing the position, and that what I thought was very interesting was him talking about his cadence. That here we go.
Yeah.
That it's just it gets the defense. I think he already had an amazing hard count before this. It was very underrated, but he's doing effective things pre and post snap, which is exactly how you're supposed to play this position. And I think that speaks a lot to your dual threat quarterbacks who are really just those one read RPO kind of guys that kind of light up the league with their legs, running on 4 to 3 man blitzes. So I gave this an A+ for Dak Prescott. I thought this was an incredible game. I didn't see a single thing he did wrong. He was in effective heave mode, as I call it. There's Garrett Carr heave mode, and then there's Dak heave mode on these types of games, and it's just dropping bombs. So like I mentioned before, Dak Prescott passes and the Cowboys pass the anti-gauntlet, and he now enters basically the infinity gauntlet versus teams. But last thing I'll say about this, Dak Prescott, you want MVP, win the majority of these upcoming games, because Jalen Hurts is 2-0 in his gauntlet.
Yep.
However, disclaimer, ultimate goal is the Super Bowl. But if you want to win MVP just for like a personal goal, the gauntlet. But yeah, let's move on into that's the Dak on track 7. Let's move on into the Rooks looks.
Here we go.
Start to them. Here we go. But bro, this is my second week in a row of just god awful picks, and it just kind of reflects my track league. I wasn't right on a single one. So we're going to go through them extremely fast. Start Brock Purdy, San Francisco quarterback, 11.46 PBR points, 21 out of 30, 209 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Start Jake Ferguson, Dallas tight end, 4.50, 1 reception, 35 yards. Sit Zach Charbonnet, Seattle running back, 9.8 PBR points, 14 carries, 47 yards, 4 receptions, 11 yards. Sit Garrett Wilson, New York Jets wide receiver, 17.40 PBR points, 7 out of 10 receptions, 44 yards, 1 touchdown. Garbage time touchdown. Sleeper, Brian Robinson, Washington running back, 8.40 PBR points, 15 carries, 53 yards, 2 receptions, 11 yards. And that is your Week 12 start of sit-em recap. We'll move into Week 13.
I took your advice. You're not gonna get away with this, man. You're not gonna get away with this. I took your advice on Ferguson, which I was gonna start him anyway. Garrett Wilson didn't play him, and then who was the other one? Brian Robinson Jr. And
it's like my own advice too, and I bit the bullet, man.
Well, like Jake Ferguson, like it was like second drive. We get a 1 catch for 35 yards, and then he gets 2 targets the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Like, give me a break.
Yeah, I had full confidence that after that throw, I was like, they trust each other 100%. And they do, but you know, there's a lot of mouths to feed on that offense. But after that catch, you were like, oh, we're geared up. He's finding the end zone. I thought at least he would get in the end zone and jump in that bucket. And he had it because he had that celebration geared up. And he had the turkey legs inside which, by the way, we should probably mention that. The Salvation Army.
Wild.
That was cool. Like having the turkey legs inside of the bucket. But yeah, your Week 13 start 'em, sit 'em. I've got start Tony Pollard, Dallas running back versus Seattle on Thursday Night Football. I think he breaks one out this game, either to the air or on the ground. I think he's been effective with his usage as of late. And Seattle's a struggling team on a short week, or not a short week. I guess they played on Thanksgiving as well. But start Cortland Sutton, the Denver Broncos wide receiver versus Houston. Look, he's a number 24 wide receiver in PPR. And I think people are very scared to start him. I think purely because his touchdowns are what are making or breaking his games. However, he's scoring touchdowns a lot. Absolutely. So why not take that risk? It's a high risk, high reward, but I would say it's a low risk, high reward. Sit Drake London. This is the Atlanta Falcons wide receiver versus the New York Jets. I say sit him because they've got Ritter back at quarterback and they're playing Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed in a low scoring ball game. Sit Joe Mixon, the Cincinnati running back versus the Jacksonville Jaguars mighty defense. They've got no identity without Joe Burrow. No involvement in a game that that he should have been involved in last week. Only 8 carries for 16 yards. Joe Mixon wasn't involved, and with Jake Browning as your quarterback, you would figure that you would establish some type of a run game. And then your sleeper of the week, and this is breaking news essentially, but it's kind of an obvious one. I just didn't really have room for him on the start. Zach Moss, Indianapolis running back versus the Tennessee Titans. Obviously you mentioned earlier in the podcast, Jonathan Taylor down with that thumb surgery injury. That's a lot of Eries, but reports say he's going to miss like 2 to 3 weeks, like you mentioned. And then of course, and that wraps up the week 13 start of sit-em. And of course, you've got your heave of the week, which we're going to get some play-by-play here. Let me pull up the play. And this heave of the week, we're going back. Yeah, we're going back to college football. And this is Jalen Milroe versus Auburn in the Iron Bowl. And this is an incredible throw.
Play-by-play.
Let's get some play-by-play. I'm going to add a little context here as well.
Do the roar.
Do it. All right, here we go. Jalen Milroe, the Heisman candidate. What thought was the Heisman candidate for 5 weeks? The Alabama quarterback is 10-1, making a case to get into the college football playoffs, playing in a tight ball game in the Iron Bowl. Down 4 with less than a minute left to play in the ball game. Just 2 timeouts remaining. He's in a 5-wide backfield, 3 wide receivers to the left side of your screen. He takes a step, gathers his feet, and he'll look towards the end zone on a deep throw, looks right, doesn't hesitate, and fires.
There you go.
Left side to Bond. James Bond? No, Bond, number 17 for the Alabama Crimson Tide. And Alabama.
But there's a lot of airspace to cover for Milroe. Still looking.
I don't have enough
firing.
Sorry. Here we go. Sorry.
That was a 4th and 31.
I did a little la, 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 with my heave there, but yeah. So that is your heave of the week: Jalen Milroe versus Auburn in the Iron Bowl. Sick throw there, sick win from Alabama. Will Alabama get into the college football playoffs over Texas? If they did that, I would laugh my ass off. They shouldn't, but they get it wrong every year. But anyways, moving into predictions. We've got the 8-3 Dallas Cowboys versus the 6-5 Seattle Seahawks at AT&T Stadium. Thursday Night Football, 7:15 on Amazon Prime. That's a mouthful right there. Let's go through our keys to success for this ball game. I'll start us off pretty quickly. We want to continue this aerial attack with CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks. I think with them two working together, bing, bang, boom, this is your yin with your yang. This is your Febreze brothers. This is the other guys. This is your Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg in a comedy film.
Fresh start.
Yeah, fresh start. Yeah,
fresh start.
Come on, you just said fresh start. Just call ourselves the Febreze brothers because we're feeling so fresh right now.
Fresh start.
All right, so and I think this Jake Ferguson utilization, this trust, like I mentioned before, big trust is always a bonus. I think another thing we can do here for keys to success is, attack the quarterback on third downs. We got to rotate Bland, Gilmore, Bland and Stephon Gilmore against Metcalf and Lockett. Obviously, we're probably not going to be following any particular receiver. They both are kind of doing the same thing. They're just one's a big-ass dude and one's a tiny-ass dude. But, yeah, you prevent that deep threat, and I think all your problems are solved because one of these guys get at least one 30-plus yard catch a game. And then other than that, they're really just kind of minor 8-yard curls and drag routes. So if you're going to play man-to-man versus a team, you need to be very careful and maybe have a safety over the top of who you think might be getting the ball on that play. But rotating Bland and Gilmore, I think, was the most cost-effective solution in this game. And then, of course, my predictions will follow after you give your keys to success. But what are your keys to success? The medical guy.
Yeah, so mine pretty similar. Keep this train rolling with the offense. I think this is going to be a bigger breakout game for Tony Pollard. I think he's going to have, like a typical last year where he breaks off, 2 or 3 runs that are 20-plus yards runs and maybe a big long touchdown run and stuff like that, or screen. So I think he's going to get because I think they're going to like I said, they're really going to start focusing on like, hey, we can't let them, just heave it on us all game, because they will, and it'll be ugly. So I think they're gonna do whatever they can to lock those receivers down. So I think this is going to be a big breakout game for Pollard. I think on the defensive side, I think we've got to pressure Geno. I think he's gonna, he kind of dealt with an injury, not last game, but the game before, I believe. And I think he's still kind of coming back from that. He's kind of been out of sync, as well as the whole Seahawks team. They've kind of been on a struggle bus, and I, don't want to kick a man or a team when he's down, but I think this is a good time to harp on that. And I think a big thing is going to be if Kenneth Walker or Charbonnet is going to be in the game as well, because one's more of a playmaker than the other, just because the other's a rookie right now, and I don't think he's as used to it and whatnot. So I think that's going to be a big thing. I think this is going to be funny. You're going to probably be like, what? But I think this game is going to be similar to the Jets game earlier in the season, where we take what the defense gives us. We don't have to have Dak throwing necessarily for, 35 times for 400 yards. But I think this is going to be one of those where it's like a 21 of 29 for, 250 yards and a couple touchdowns, or maybe even one touchdown or something like that. And then Pollard and Dowdle kind of running the show back there and using that pass, like we've talked about with this scheme, this pass to open up to where now they're focused on deep shots down the field, stuff like that. And then we're gashing them for, 5+ yards a carry.
Right.
And so that's kind of what I have on my keys to the game. It's just pressure on Geno, and then still keep this, offense rolling, getting a good rhythm and stuff like that. And then my prediction for the score. You want me to go first on prediction?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's going to seem close, but it's going to be similar to the Packers and the Lions game. It's going to be 28-24 Dallas, but I think Seattle might score a last-second touchdown to get the cover in and whatnot, and make it close. So it's going to be like a 28-17 Dallas, but they're going to get that last-second cover, and so I'm going to go with a 28-24.
Bro, that's crazy.
Is that yours?
My prediction was 28-17 Seahawks.
Wow.
28-17 Cowboys, and that the Seahawks might do a backdoor cover and score. I have written here predictions: 28-17 Cowboys. Cowboys get the ground game going instead of aerial attacks, and then possible, Seahawks last-minute touchdown is what I have written. That's crazy.
That's
okay. All right. Great minds think alike. Hopefully we're correct. Hopefully it's actually a larger margin. But yeah, I've got the Cowboys winning this game pretty easily if they play the way that they're supposed to play and with the talent that they have. I think Micah Parsons has an outstanding game. I think he eats in this game versus this offensive line. You'll probably see him across from Charles Cross in this game. Across from Cross. But all right, Mamas, don't let your Cowboys segment. Of course, our quick little statement tours. Mamas, don't let your Cowboys lose the gimmies in the gauntlets. Focus on going 1-0. Of course, I think those gimmies are Seattle and Detroit. You got to at least win those two if you want a chance at, getting a good seeding in the playoffs, and maybe even having contention at the number 1 seed, which I highly doubt now that Philadelphia is already at 10-1. But we got to go positive in this gauntlet, and but just got to go 1-0 first. Don't lose the gimmies.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Seahawks, Lions, and then right now the Bills are looking like that type of team. And if they lose again, they might be in kind of negative heave mode and just might be throwing it. But my Mamas, don't let your Cowboys start the gauntlet on a bad note. Like you said, go 1-0, win this game against Seattle. And then, the ball's kind of in your court, and keep the momentum going. I know it's hard to win a lot of games in a row like they've done, but it seems like they got the team to do it. And the only way to start it is to start it off right. So,
exactly. Yep. And then I have just a tiny little track hierarchy here, and then we'll move to track records. I just wanted to. I've been keeping track throughout the year.
You ranking track members? Is that what you're doing on this? Oh.
Yeah, number 4. No. We got the track hierarchy. I just wanted to highlight, I've been keeping track all year, like I mentioned before, your top 5 teams and kind of how they're just kind of shuffling around. But I think these are going to be my permanent ones. I think I've seen enough from these teams that to have them in this category. I think I've got the number 1. You got the Baltimore Ravens. Number 2, you got the Kansas City Chiefs. Number 3, you got the Philadelphia Eagles. And number 4, you got the San Francisco 49ers. And I don't think a 5th spot has been claimed yet. Yeah. Your 5th spot is just kind of a blank. And until the Cowboys go through this gauntlet, or at least half of the gauntlet, we'll see if they contend to that 5th spot or not. But all those teams below the Dallas Cowboys, I don't think are close. You could argue the Bills on a good day, but the Houston Texans, Jaguars, Detroit Lions, Dolphins, Bills, those are all guys that are in your top 10 or whatever. But the guys that really matter are the teams that I just mentioned that have a real shot at winning the Super Bowl. But yeah, a lot to prove in this gauntlet. Okay. Track records of the week, and then we'll finish it off. From inspiring tunes to compelling statistics, it's worth putting on the record. The medical guy, you start first. Your track record of the week.
Track record of the week. It's pretty simple. I think we all know what it is.
Yeah,
it's Christmas time, baby. It's Christmas time. You're going to start going into every retail store if you hadn't already been. You got to hear Mariah Carey on there. You're going to hear the NSYNC, the Merry Christmas. You're going to hear all of it. It's Christmas time.
The Wham! Last Christmas.
Yeah. Last Christmas.
That's a goated song, though.
Yeah, bro. Yeah. All 3 of those are pretty goated right there. Track ranking for, top Christmas songs. Those are my top 3 right there.
Next week.
But Christmas time, trees up, lights are out, ornaments out. I'll probably start working next week on getting lights up on the tree. I have my own house. I can do that now. But yeah, Christmas time's got to be it's coming up. It's December. It's about to be December. It's getting cold. Let's get it.
Let's get it, baby. Last Christmas, baby.
Yeah.
Before World War III. But moving on. Here we go. We got that sounded deep as hell. Okay. Darren Bland, of course, he sets the record with 5 touchdowns. That's an easy one. I was only going to use it if you didn't use it.
Yeah, I didn't even think of doing that one. I was sitting here racking my brain, and I was like, man, it's Christmas time. That's an easy one. Yeah.
But yeah, Darren Bland breaks the record for pick sixes in a season with 5. He's got 7 interceptions on the year. And then the one I just wanted to mention briefly, I put this one on here because I thought you were going to use Bland, so I was like, I don't want to steal that. But the Aggie wore him. I got a little attacked earlier today.
You did not get attacked, bro.
Yeah, I'm just playing. Okay, Mike Elko is the new Texas A&M head coach, and I think it was cool, to have them hire a new coach that has been at A&M before, and he had a pretty solid season at Duke. But I just wanted, since being an Aggie, I wanted to highlight the new hire over there. So we'll see. I don't have big hopes for 2024, if you're asking. I have high expectations, but I don't have high hopes.
Well, shout out to the A&M body as a whole for essentially getting someone, fired before they even got hired with Mark Stoops from Kentucky.
Yeah.
And that to me is insane that the whole student athletic community body were just like, hell no, don't bring him in here. And then it's like, oh okay, never mind. Delete the graphic. We're gonna get the other guy. We're gonna get Elks in.
Delete the graphic. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh. But honestly, I think those were 2 good hires, whichever one you decided to go with. I thought Stoops was good. I know he's kind of had a down part of the season, but I mean, he was at Kentucky, and at one point they were top 15 in the country, I think, or top 17.
Yeah,
and then their quarterback got hurt, and it went downhill. But I think Elks is good. He used to be the DC here, right?
Yes,
he's the DC, so I think that's good because he's familiar with everything. He's got some roots grounded into A&M as a place and as I guess a body as well.
Yeah.
Keep using that word, but I think that's a good hire as well. He did good at Duke for about the first 6 or 7 games, and then his quarterback got hurt, and it kind of went to shit. But I think both are a great hire. And I was listening, and I'm kind of rambling right now, but I was listening to the Tyler Sports Radio, And like one of the guys said, Texas A&M needed to hire just a straight up blue collar football coach, not a crazy recruiter with a bunch of hype, not someone that is flashy or anything like that, like just a football coach that just knows football. And I can't think of more of a football coach than a defensive coordinator. And so I think it's a good hire, and I think there's going to be a lot of good things come from it.
Yeah. You got the defensive-minded head coach in Elks, and he had, like you mentioned, that quarterback that got hurt, and then the Kentucky guy. He was legit when Will Levis was there last year. They've kind of been like a 15 to 25 ranked football team when they're not really known for being a football team. So I'm excited. Of course, a change is always fun to see. Shout out to our alumni and our donors, who are really just making this stuff happen on their own. I mean, Aggies, they do things in a different way like you'd never believe. They even sue other Aggies now. But it is incredible to see a community care so much about who their head coach is. It's almost like Friday Night Lights, where the guy, the main coach goes off to TMU or whatever it is, and they just lose their minds in Dillon, Texas, to get his ass back. But yeah, hopefully some big things in the SEC. And I think Arkansas and A&M are permanent opponents still moving forward. So always going to be fun. But any last words before we exit?
No, go Stars. They just won a game against the Winnipeg Jets. So let's go.
Let's get it. I might have to snag a couple season tickets from your wifey with the kid. So
just let us know.
Respect. And we can all go together. No, not for real though. But all right. All right, track 24, the Gauntlet. We will see y'all next Wednesday. Go Cowboys. Get that dub on Thursday Night Football. And welcome to the Gauntlet. Shatter the script.